Priorities Committee meeting to order for Monday, October 19th, 2020. At this time, we will take a silent moment of personal reflection. As a reminder, we're just working through some technical challenges to connect Councillor Baker. I'm not sure if he can hear us or not. Councillor Baker, are you in the bridge?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay. The IT team is working diligently. Yeah.
Okay.
Is that connected to the bridge?
It's not. It's can call in now. It's not dialed yet.
Everybody's watching that.
Okay. Patrick's doing his thing, so we'll just start to work through the process.
We're all
So
good now. We
reminders,
just need to get dialed in. I don't know which.
all members of council are obligated to declare a conflict of interest or pecuniary interest as per section 133 of the Lloydminster Charter regarding any item on this agenda. This meeting is for discussion and information gathering only. All decisions will occur during regular council meetings. We thank all of our presenters at this time for their time. Councillor Torson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I understand it's just for information today, but just depending on the nature of the conversation on some of the infrastructure projects updates and as far as the procurement documents, I may step out depending on if we're talking about my former employer that I still do quite a bit of consulting work for.
All right, thank you. Councillor Buckley.
Thank you, Worship. Although I realize it's a GPC meeting, I think I'm more comfortable stepping up for 5.4.
All right.
As that involves one of my employers as well, I request the council, so I'd like to remove myself from that.
All right, thank you. Not seeing any other notes, we'll move on to agenda item number 2, the approval of the agenda as presented. Look for direction. Councillor Buckingham.
Thank you, Worship. I move that the agenda dated October 19th, 2020 be approved.
Seconder. Councillor Fagin. Any further discussion on the motion at hand? Not seeing any, I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Baker, are you with us? Okay, not yet. Still having some trouble. Okay. Motion carried. Moving on to item number 3, approval of the previous meeting minutes. Look for direction. Councillor Buckingham.
Thank you, Worship. I move that the Governance and Priorities Committee minutes dated October 1st, 2020 be approved.
Thank you. Looking for a seconder. Councillor Torson, thank you very much. Is there any discussion on that motion? Not seeing any, I will call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 4, public presentations, none listed. Thank you. Moving on to item number 5, administration reports. I look to the city manager.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and Council. For 5.1, Lloydminster Recreation Facilities Feasibility Study Update, I'll ask Joel Turcotte to present. He is on the phone.
Good afternoon, Joel. Do you hear us?
Good afternoon.
Good
Can you hear me?
afternoon. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. So today, I'd like to provide the committee with information relating to the Lloydminster Recreation Facilities Feasibility Study. The City of Lloydminster contracted Gibbs and Gage Architects to conduct a recreation facilities feasibility study and the potential future needs of the Centennial Civic Center, Nevada and Aquatic Center. Feasibility study examined the demands, utilization, and cost recovery of both facilities, and provided the city with estimates for new construction and operational costs of future facilities. Gibbs Gage Architects first engaged stakeholder groups, city administration, and reviewed several city documents. Gibbs Gage then used the information to develop several options for both program configuration and site location, as well as associated costs. Public engagement was conducted through an online presentation and survey of the multiple recreation facility options from May 15th to June 5th, 2020. Through the public engagement, Gauge aimed to learn what the public would like to see in both an aquatic facility and an arena facility. Gauge concluded that there is an urgency to move forward with planning of a new arena venue in the city of Lloydminster. Similarly, there may be a need for an expansion of aquatic space and programming, although the urgency is not as immediate for the aquatic facility given the well-maintained condition of the current facility. As a result, the immediate focus should be replacement of the Centennial Civic Center because of the findings after the 2020 municipal election. A recommendation will be brought forward for council's consideration for planning work to be initiated for a new arena and event venue to replace the Centennial Civic Center. As design construction is anticipated to take several years. Recreation facility feasibility study will be presented to council during the October 26, 2020 regular council meeting for acceptance. And I should note that it will be presented by Gauge. So options today, the Lloydminster Recreation Facility Feasibility Study be brought forward for a future regular council meeting for acceptance. I will pass it on to you, Your Worship, for any questions.
Thank you, Joel. I'll look to council for questions. Councillor Buckingham.
Thank you, Worship. I'm not sure how many questions I have as much as some comments, maybe a few questions buried in there. This is the next major, large infrastructure thing that the city is going to have to face, and it will be in the hands of a newly elected council, of course. So it's going to be a tough one for sure. I still enjoy the idea of having partnerships in a facility such as this. I've often talked about the ability to build this facility near our exhibition grounds and put those things together. And you know, you look at cities like Brandon, Manitoba that host a Briar because they have their rec facility attached to their major centers like that, and they have the Briar Patch in there and the banquets and all that stuff. And so I know that in the study it doesn't necessarily say that that's a feasible option, but just something I wanted to bring up for construction. You know, you're looking at a $40 million facility. If you don't include the $24.8 million in the report to expand the BioClean Aquatic Center. It's nice to see the stakeholder feedback was good in determining the direction that the architect or the analyst took a look at. But at the time this report is coming forward, I think it's a little bit of a different time. So I think the public has to be re-engaged on this as we move forward to see what the needs versus wants are in the city going forward on a facility like this. The other thing I wanted to talk about was, does the city really want to be in the business of bringing in concerts that compete with things like the Big Juba and the exhibition grounds? On the other side of the coin, if you're going to build a facility like this, you're very short-sighted not to make it at least an option to have a facility that can host those types of things. But just things I wanted to have brought up in the discussion for a future council going forward.
Thank you, Councillor. Some good questions, and I'll comment on some of those after we get around answering some questions here. Other questions or comments from Executive Manager?
Yeah, just to provide some context, I think the size of the facility, although maybe slightly bigger than the existing Civic Center or Centennial Civic Center, we're not looking to expand to a larger arena to do those events. I think the events are a spin-off of what we can do in our current arena, although limited with regards to how that facility is set up. So a new facility with a few more seats that are existing is kind of what we're looking to bring forward or through the design process, and those, I believe, recommended in the report.
Yeah, and I think on the surface, you'd be crazy not to build it to that kind of standard. But just a couple of concerns I had around those things and what the city wants to get into there. Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking generally you're going to find support for that kind of a build.
Thank you, Councillor. I just wanted to confirm, Councillor Baker, have you joined us?
I'm here now, Your Worship. Thank you.
Terrific. Can you hear me, Councillor Baker?
I can hear you very well. Not the rest too well, but I can hear you. I can follow the meeting pretty good.
Okay, we're on agenda item 5.1. Administration has just presented it, and we're just taking questions. So I'm going to go around the table, and if you have any questions, I'll come back
I
to
can
you.
hear it.
Okay, good. Councillor Monroe, and then followed by, I'll move to this side.
Just hopefully if administration can confirm what public engagement and user group input has already been established. I'm not sure, I know Councillor Buckingham alluded to perhaps further engagement, but have we not already done pretty extensive engagement in regards to this document?
Joel, you wanna comment, or do you want me to? It's hard when he's not here to speak. So, yeah, we did some engagement with all the user groups that believe that was affected by the facilities. Lots of user groups were engaged. I do believe there was online engagement as well. That happened from May through June, I do believe, as per the admin report. That was the initial engagement with regards to users, what you like to see, what works in our current facilities, what doesn't. There will be lots of public engagement as we move forward. We did have it at one of your voice nights as well, and put some public survey out, and people had the opportunity to select what was important to them in these facilities. So yes, I would say we got enough public engagement to put this plan together. But now as we move into the next stages, there will be more public engagement as we move through the process.
Perfect. And what will we be looking at for input from the public in the next set of engagement?
Yeah, I would have to lean on Gibbs when they come back, or
Perfect.
Joel
And
has
that's
to
that next
answer.
week for
Yeah.
sure. Please.
Councilor Dorson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So, yeah, this item is an interesting one, because obviously from the report we've got back on the Centennial Civic Center, there's definitely a need to get something moving on replacement for that facility sooner than later, as well as what we know to be the lifespan of some of the parts of the Archie Miller or another ice surface may be necessary at some point in the future. But this will be, it'll be interesting to see where we go from here over the next few months and over the next year, because it's really hard to say as to whether or not this is going to make it to what we'll say is the public's list of priorities for what they want to see, even though I totally understand and agree that we need to have that larger venue for the rig for events and whatnot. So at the end of the day, it's good that this report of all things provides us with options. So options as to whether or not we're just having the arena that has seats where you can have bobcats, and you can have some of the larger events that may come through town. From a tourism perspective, could be good for the city. But on the other, and then it's also good that it gives us options for adding another ice surface to it. There's the other options of if we choose down the road to add a pool or something like that. So if we can't do it all at once, that there may be opportunity to revisit it at some point in the future to add those other parts and pieces, and giving us kind of a high-level cost estimate to get us there. But it's one of those things where if we don't start the planning process now, we won't have any kind of shovel-ready anything to be chasing grants at any point in the future. So we have to be, I just think we have to really recognize the need for this, but also keep in mind that we are still in the middle of a pandemic right now, and the appetite for some of those things, with not knowing when life is going to return back to total, complete normal is. So it's just a tricky one to be dealing with right now, but by all means, at least being at this step is useful to move the city forward for the time being.
Councilor Badger.
Thanks, Your Worship. Yeah, there's certainly a tremendous amount of information in there, and some of the things that I guess that I was thinking might have been covered, but I just want to add a couple of things. One, I think is that we know the need is there, and we absolutely need to get underway in terms of the planning. Otherwise, we'll be caught without an arena in a community where we already know that the demand for ice far exceeds what's available. We've had calls, and as an example, our AAA girls team, again, which it certainly is a feather in the cap of our community, doesn't have a home, doesn't have a spot where they can practice and can host from on a regular basis. Similarly, I know there's always a scramble and a fight for getting the best ice time. And we see kids that are 6 and 7 year olds, or at least when my kids are that age, are showing up at the rink at 6 in the morning in order for them to have ice time. So I think there's some challenges around the current amount of ice we have now. And as we grow, I think that demand will be nothing more than grow. And if we wait too long around acting on this, then we're really going to be in a pickle around it. The other thing for me, I think, is a point raised at our last meeting, or a couple meetings back with Blake regarding Bud Miller. And I'm really loath to add more into Bud Miller than we currently have. And if you go there when people are walking, the parking lot is full. And I think the more we put in there, the more pressure we're going to put on that park relative to parking space, space availability. And we also know from our council members who are involved in swimming that there's a demand that really there's a scramble for time for access to pool time in order to do the synchronized swimming. We have 2 clubs and we have all those challenges around as well. But I when I see the suggestion of having the extension, even though financially it is probably the best choice, I worry about the overall future long-term for our community when we keep piling more and more activities into Villa Park. And I really wonder what's sustainable in terms of being able to maintain the image that certainly we've had around this being a jewel and a crown for a city as well. I guess the only other piece to make a comment about this is and trying to weigh out where the best locations are. Gosh, if we had that space downtown, we could try to create our own ice district for that matter, but I doubt that's going to happen unless we have railroad tracks going underneath the rink or something. But I'm not sure there's a really, really good location. There's the best location, and that's part of the challenge as well. I'm going through that, so trying to sort that out. I think it'll be important to find out what assumptions we bring to guide us in making that decision. Because some of them will be cost, and I think that some of them will be how do we spread these recreational facilities around the community so we don't push all of the growth, all of the city into one side of the city, so that people want to live obviously in one part. And if we're going to develop a city that's whole and healthy, we have to make sure these resources are spread out adequately around so that it's just not all situated in one spot.
Thank you, Councilor. Executive Manager Stan.
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to Councilor Monroe's question. So stakeholder engagement is on page 14 of the report, and it talks about all the user groups we connected with. Obviously, City of Lloydminster staff and council, the executive leadership, as well as Minor Hockey Association, Junior League Bandits, the Bobcats Junior 18, Figure Skating Club, Speed Skating Club, board groups, lacrosse, Stingray, Synchro Swim Team, the Rebel Swim Club, and the Riptide Swim Club. So they had their own specific engagements, and then there was a public engagement, and that's detailed on page 30 of the report attached. It talks about doing a public engagement from May till June 5th, I do believe. It shows all the questions that were asked, and then responses are on page 72 of the report. And then to Councillor Dijk's comments he made earlier, comment, why are we even looking at this? We have to remember back to the building committee that brought forward a recommendation or information that our Centennial Civic Center is on its last legs. We're 2 to 5 years from that building being at end of life. So as part of the feasibility study for the new pool, we also added into that project the feasibility for the new arena. As we go through this process, we're finding the new arena has a higher priority than the new pool, just based on lifespan left within that facility. Now, yes, there is an issue with capacity of the existing pool and the amount of lane swim and user group swim requirements there, but we're in a critical situation with the infrastructure for the bucket.
Councilor.
Perfect, yeah, and just to be clear on that, I'm aware of that, just so the public knows that, not everyone may sit down and read the 80-page document. So just so that everybody is aware exactly of, the city took the time, we engaged with these different user groups, we engaged with the public. It was through our social media, through our Facebook page, everybody had the opportunity to provide input, and whether or not they chose to do that or not was up to them. But, the city made it available for everybody to provide some insight on that.
Yeah, just one more comment, Your Worship, with regards to the location. This report doesn't set in stone the location, so as we go through the planning process and more engagement, we can narrow that down to specific locations that the council may have a desire for us to look into, or the public would like us to look into, or from an administration perspective, we think there's a site that works both from a serviceability and cost perspective. So those things can be flushed out through the next phase of design.
Thank you. A couple items we've covered a lot. There's a lot of great discussion around the table. I guess I was just trying to glean through it here quickly, and I didn't mark the page. the cost range estimate that's been presented by the consultants, is that at the, what level? Is that at the 30% plus or minus? Is that at the 15%? Or have we, how close can we, for a starting figure? Because I think the next council and the community needs to fully understand this is not going to be built for $5 million. It's going to be built for $10 million. I don't know what the number's going to be, but as they've already presented some numbers, what kind of percentage of plus or minus are we looking at, as I can understand?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Joel would probably be a better one because he dealt with the budget. I know he's having difficulty sticking.
Yeah, I understand.
But from my understanding is that we were real high level. Is he
He's here. Joel, if you want to tackle that question, I appreciate it.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you. I am here. Sorry, I had some problems there. It's a Class B spreadsheet, so that's within 25%.
25% plus or minus. Okay, thank you. I think that's a good start to take to the community as we start to have those conversations, now or into the future, and they need to start sooner than later, I believe. Certainly, one area that this report wasn't asked to was funding, and I think that's something that the future council that sits around this table will need to start to address that. Our community has been well known for stepping up, but they've also been experiencing a real shock that they didn't expect between the economy and COVID. So it's something that will challenge our community, but I think we can work towards it. The size of the facility, I think, is going to be important, and I know that there's been discussions, what is the right size for Lloydminster? And that'll be, again, something that working with the user groups, as well as the city administration and council and the public, so they understand, because everything comes with a price, as I talked about earlier, and the bigger we make it, the more expensive it's going to be. And we already know, and I hate to say this, recreation is not a cost recovery business for the taxpayer. It costs the taxpayer. So whatever we decide, when that is decided by whoever, that is going to have to be taken into account. I really wanted to say thank you to the user groups that spoke up. You alluded to that, Executive Manager Stang. I think that a great number of people took time to spend with our consultant. And for a consulting report, as we've got today, it takes input from multiple people to get a good picture. I want to say thank you. And I also want to say thank you to the public that stepped forward, because they had an interest already. And it's been talked about in the community. I get stopped occasionally asking, when are we going to start moving dirt for that? Or is that what we're doing on the north end today? I casually remind people this is far from started. You'll be hearing a lot more about it, because the community engagement we need is huge. There's no question about it with the times that we're challenged with. But overall, thank you very much to administration, and we'll look forward to Gibbs Gage presenting. Oh, certainly, Councillor Hodgson.
Your Worship, just one quick question. So, and perhaps Don can respond to this one. What was our cost to build our service support center, and what percentage of that was through grants? Best guess.
Yeah, that's prior to my time.
Oh, okay.
I do believe it was around 25 million range.
Yeah.
But as far as how that was funded, we probably have to go back into our record to figure out exactly how much of that was funded and how much of that was raised in the community, because I know there was quite a bit of money raised from the community.
I guess we talked earlier just about potential grants available and being shovel ready and that sort of thing as well. And so I guess to our knowledge, are there recreation grants that would support this kind of a project?
Yeah, yeah, I do believe there are quite a few grants and things that, as we move through the design process, we'll be looking to apply for specific funding as it becomes available. And just the city manager just reminded me too, we do have funding within the 21 budget to start the next phase of design process. So you guys saw that in the budget that was presented October 1st, and we'll be coming back in November for final approval.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Torson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I thought I'd seen it at some point, but I can't find it in there. So as far as expandability of an arena, are these things built in a way where they can be bigger at some point in the future? So let's say we're only adding a handful of, well, not a handful, but not a huge percentage of seats from what we have right now. But through our growth study, we know that we're going to grow by 50% and we're going to be 60,000 people in the next 35 years. Do you know, is there any opportunity within these types of designs to be able to add another level so that you were, building something that's a little more future-proof as well, rather than having to replace in 20 years, because all of a sudden this is half of the size of what it would need to be in 20 years.
Yeah, I'd ask you to ask that question when we bring it back when the consultant's here. Because they designed a number of these facilities. Now, I do know there's models where if you do the upfront planning, the expandability, if you have an arena to expand, to add a second community arena, or to add a pool, or to add a library, or something of those nature onto it, if you do that planning upfront, it becomes easier to expand from that perspective. But with regards to going from, I'll just throw a number out there, 2,500 seats to 7,000 seats, I don't know what that looks like, and that would be a great question for Gibbs Consulting next week.
Councillor Buckingham.
Thank you, Worship. I think in the report, as I read it, the initial thing that we're saying was to have a half bowl in the initial design, and with the potential to add and fill in the bowl for the rest of those seats as a phase one, from what their report said. So it would take it up a few hundred more seats later on, but not necessarily build it that way at the beginning. So that's just a small expansion, but
Councillor Baker, do you have any questions?
I think we're still on the recreation.
Yes, we are.
I
Yeah, we still are.
I couldn't hear a couple of our members, but in any case, I guess I went through the report a couple of times. And I guess I just had a couple of comments. Certainly it's a background for the future. And I think that and I think it should happen first, is that we make sure that everything's in place for our wastewater treatment plant and things are up and running smoothly there before we plunge too far forward. But in any case, it's a question of setting priorities. We have different, depending on the configuration, but we have a few projects we need to do in the world of recreation, and it's a question of what comes first, and whether it's a library, or whether it's a bar colony, or whether it's a new rink, or whatever it might be. That is important right now, but setting that priority and then organizing the community to find out what they want and how much people are prepared to support and contribute to some of these projects. And I use a case in point is the Service Sports Center and certainly Victor the Theater, how people got behind those projects and supported them so that we could get, so that's quite a load for the next council or two or three, but I would recommend that you, administration, I'm sure they will have a solid look at that before they move too far ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. As always, great input. Thank you. Any other discussion, questions, or comments? Not seeing any. Thank you very much, Joelle, for your presentation. Moving on to 5.2, with the city manager.
Thank you, Your Worship. For 5.2, Fire Station 1 project update number 1. I'll ask James Rogers to come forward and present.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council.
Good afternoon, James. Welcome.
I come with a lot of papers. Before you is the Fire Station number 1 project and our project update number 1. We will have multiple project updates, so this is the first one to get us going. So the topic is to provide the committee with update number 1 of the Fire Station number 1 project. With that, I'd like to just jump right into the presentation, if that's possible. Okay. So throughout the presentation, I'd like to talk about the project team and just introduce who is on that project team, both the City of Lloyd project team, the architect, and then the procurement method, the site location and site constraints, just so everybody understands where our project is. The current project status and plan presentation. That is going to be, of course, the most fun piece of the presentation. The next steps, and then, of course, open to questions at the end. Next slide. A fire station is a building that is simply made up of bricks, steel, and drywall, but is a building from which children draw inspiration, communities are built upon, and a home away from home for those protecting our homes. So the project team consists of the City of Lloyd, a design consultant, and to be a construction manager. On the City of Lloydminster project team, we have myself. I'm the project manager and overall project lead. We have Pete McHugh, who is assisting me on that with the building systems, including mechanical, electrical, and building envelope lead, really a building technical advisor or specialist. And then, of course, we have Lee Sawicki, who is the current fire chief, and he's providing the needed technical and functional lead support so that at the end of the day, we have a functional fire hall. That's really the goal that we're after. We have Doug Rodwell, who is our administration and executive liaison. He basically tells us what we can and cannot do. It keeps us in check. So thank you, Doug, for being part of our team. We have a design consultant who is ACI Architects out of Edmonton, Alberta. And to date, they have proven to be extremely positive to work with and very knowledgeable in the fire services and protective services building design and construction. And then lastly, part of our project team will be a construction manager. We are in the process of procuring those services right now. And the role of the construction manager will be to inform our design, not drive our design, but rather inform it for construction feasibility, cost feasibility, and then help take us through to tendering and construction of the building. Next slide, please. So the site is located within the Saskatchewan Industrial Park, which is north of 44th Street and east of 40th Avenue. The Sawmill Restaurant would be south of us in the neighborhood we're looking to build in. We have 3 lots available to us that are currently owned by the City of Lloydminster Land Division. Lots 10, lots 7, and lot 8. We are looking to take lot number 10 and lot number 7 to develop our fire station and the grounds that go along with that. Site constraints. Luckily for us, this is a bare site. There has been no previous development on our site other than the land division itself, or land subdivision itself. So that's very positive. Our site is bordered by private property to the west, vacant land to the east, a roadway to the south, and CN rail tracks to the north. So this is a very positive location for our fire station to be constructed. We have completed a site geotechnical, and we have not found any hydrocarbons and or other materials that should really pose an impact on our project. Next slide, please. Okay, good. Current project status and plan presentation. So the design team, including the City of Lloyd and ACI, are currently working through the site plan and building programming revisions to ensure the needs of the fire services team are met today and in the future. A functional fire station is paramount above all else. If we do not have a functional fire station, we've failed. That's when you boil it down. If we can't get the fire station members from the dorms or the training facilities to the trucks and to the call, we have failed. So ACI is very well in tune with this. So functional is key. At this stage, we are designing with our hearts first, and then we will be designing with our heads. So what do we want? What do we need? And at this time, we've come up with pretty pictures. That's what they are. They're very detailed, but they are pretty pictures. So I'll ask you to remember that as we go through this. They're very detailed, but remember they are still pretty pictures. Next is construction management. So construction management is the project delivery method the City of Lloyd project team has agreed to. The City of Lloyd project team, in conjunction with the design consultant, is currently in the process of securing the services of a qualified vendor to provide construction management services. So this includes pre-construction services, as well as construction services associated with tendering the packages, securing contractors to complete the actual building construction. And they are here to, again, to inform us and inform our designs on construction, feasibility, and cost. At this point, we are still well within our project budget, and we are looking to construct a fire station between 6.5 and 6.8 million, so we are still well on track for that. Next slide, please. So before we look at the plans and we go through the 3D models, we need to discuss what do we look at as part of our design process. Functional fire station. Again, that is number one, that is paramount. We need to have a functional fire station or else we failed. Vehicle movement and site access. If we can't get people into the fire station to park and protect their vehicles, and we can't get the fire services vehicles out, we have also failed. Every second counts on a fire call, so we need quick movement of vehicles into site and out of site. Internal building circulation and movement of people. If one of Chief Sawicki's personnel cannot get from the dorms into the dirty side of the apparatus bay and onto a truck efficiently, that just puts people's property and lives at stake. So the building has to be functional. In this building, we have administration side, we have training, and we have the dorms. So all those pieces need to coordinate with each other and boost each other. Training aspects needs to have access to the washrooms. Administration needs to have access to training, and then of course the dorms needs to have access to everything. Clean versus dirty. So we have a clean side and we have a dirty side. We can't just have the whole place as a dirty side and people wandering around with boots and
Yeah, I just wanted you to elaborate on that because it doesn't mean much to me. Clean and dirty.
I think I could probably provide some elaboration on that. Fire services, and as the fire chief can probably speak to, when they come back from a fire, their uniforms, their turnout gear is covered with carcinogens. It's important to make sure that those carcinogens stay on the dirty side, so that where the staff are on the clean side, they're not exposed unnecessarily to those dangers that cancer causing carcinogens.
Okay. Councilor Buckingham.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, it was one of the things I had in my notes here. When we get to the pretty pictures, you'll see that there's a couple different sets of laundry facilities that are inside this, and that's exactly for that. The service is going towards being very, very protective of those people coming and going from there. So you've got a laundry service that would take care of stuff that's been exposed, and even a laundry service that wouldn't, and that doesn't cross over into the administration areas. And it's the way the fire service is going, with extra precautions on this type of thing. So you'll see it in the designs coming forward. And I was really happy to see that.
Fantastic question and discussion. So when we get to the actual plans, I will show you where we do have that clear dividing line between the clean and the dirty, and that's through vestibules that have positive air, so it's drawing the dirty air back into the apparatus bay and not spreading that particulate throughout the clean side into administration and the dorm side. Acoustic areas, so that we have dorms in this building. We also have compressors, we have administration, we have training facilities that can fit up to 40 people, so that's going to be quite a loud spot. Plus we have apparatus bays with engines going in and out. So we have a couple key areas where acoustics are going to be paramount. Building security. This is going to be a 24-hour staffed fire station. So how do we ensure building security when it's 2 o'clock in the morning, a call goes out, the on-call fire personnel leave? How do we ensure that the site and the fire station is secured? So that is something that we're also looking at. Dorm area and ancillary spaces. So that includes the dorms, the shift captain's office, the change rooms, a kitchen, and the lounge. So that goes back to the first quote on, I believe, the second slide. This is a home away from home for those working at the fire services. And then, of course, administration areas and training facilities. We are taking administration personnel from Fire Station 1 and Fire Station 2 and combining them into one building so that we do have a central administration hub for our fire services department. And then also we do have a training facility. Yes, question?
Thanks, James. Just on the administration moving into one facility, that was one of the recommendations from the master plan, was it not?
Yeah, it absolutely was. They wanted, in the master plan, it said central to everybody, and also that the staff and everybody had full access to administration. So it wasn't really advantageous to have the chief and an assistant chief not near where the full-time duty crew is, so that was all in there.
Thanks.
Thank you. Please carry on, James.
Thank you. And then, of course, we need the training facilities. We need to keep our staff trained on up-to-date fire methods. So we do have a training stair as well as a training room where we can complete courses and other online training or functions like that. So once again, I'll reiterate, the attached plans are preliminary plans that are still being reviewed by the project team for consistency, function, cost, budget, availability, and construction feasibility. The attached plans are for discussion purposes only. That's the engineering piece of me coming forward. So,
Sorry, you said it, a stair, training stair, I don't know what that means. Sorry.
So attached to the building that currently in design, you'll see what's called a training tower. And so it has a water, wet, dry function that firefighters can use to train up and go up and downstairs. Fairly common in most new fire service builds. And at this time, it's part of the design.
Awesome. Thanks.
next slide. So next we'll move into our where we are sitting at with our plans. So this slide shows the location of the building within Lot 10. You can see the apron come off the front, and that's where the fire apparatus will exit the building. That will be a solely dedicated apparatus apron. Everybody else, including passenger vehicles, will enter through the east side. That's where we have our visitor parking, staff parking, our locked compound, and then our apparatus will be able to come through that way and drive into the back of the apparatus bay, so that we do have a drive-through apparatus bay. We decided to go that route to A, protect the building, protect the trucks, and then just assist with the movement around the site. If we have personnel backing these trucks in, of course we increase that chance of backing into the building, backing into other trucks, or in worst case, backing into a member. So, next slide, please. So this is what we are proposing for fire station number 1. It's split into the two halves, the dirty side and the clean side. The dirty side would be the apparatus bays. We have 3 double deep apparatus bays, and then we have our training tower at the back, which is the top of the picture. Our compressor room, our SCBA room, workshop, laundry for our turnout gear to keep it on the dirty side, gear storage, and then just ancillary spaces including meter rooms and such like that. As we move from the left side of the page to the right, that's where we transition into the clean side of the fire station. So you'll notice we have our administration, we have a vestibule, that would be our positive air, or a zone to keep particulate in the apparatus bay. Our change rooms, which are split into male and female, another positive air or vestibule, and then dorms at the back. So in our clean side, we have the front half, or the bottom of the page, being admin and training, the middle section being mixed, and that is our fitness, our change rooms, kitchen, laundry, and our lounge for our on-call fire service people. And then at the top of the page, we have our dorms. So we have 6 dorms at this time, including one with which would be a shift captain with an attached office. We did put that office there so that he is a little bit more in tune with personnel staying within the dorms, rather than dragging them up to the front and to have any discussions. While we're on this slide, any questions about?
Yeah, James, you've got 3 bays. Again, size, I'm not quite sure. What a number of apparatus that could be stored in this proposed fire hall?
So within this apparatus bay, as I said, it is 3 wide, double deep. So we will be able to safely, I guess, store 2 engines double deep. So we can store 6 engines, but the length we will be able to store 1 pumper truck and 1 ladder or aerial apparatus truck. So we can bring that vehicle over from fire station number 2 and park it here if we need to. So this bay does have a lot of expandable room built into it for that interim jumping step before we need to go to the 3rd fire station.
So that would be, in essence, an expansion to the...
Within the current configuration of the bays, the 3 bays do provide that future proofing in case we expand our equipment, but not the personnel out of this station.
So a quick question, and I can understand in larger cities where your fire stations are kind of lodged into some business or commercial or areas that, they back their vehicles in. Why don't we just have them drive in from the back? Why can't trucks just loop around the back and come in through the back door and drive straight as opposed to back in? What's the thinking there? I was wondering.
So there is 2 methods. I believe at fire station number 2, we simply just do not have enough room to get around the backside. So it is drive in, turn around, and then back in. Fire station number 1, I believe, is drive-through or back in?
That's correct, it is drive-through.
It is a drive-through currently. A positive about the site that we've chosen for this fire station number 1 building is we have ample space that we can go around and just drive straight in the back. All 2 fire stations that we toured in Edmonton were drive-through. One in St. Albert was a backup or back into. So if we have the space, we are going to make it a drive-through.
I think
It's safer, that's all.
Exactly.
industry standards, and certainly looking to the oil and gas industry, the preferred is drive-through, but in most cases they have to back up. But if drive-through is available, that is definitely the preferred methodology, because you just eliminate so many different hazards. And I think Councillor Buckingham could even allude to that even more from that perspective, if you want to.
No, I won't allude to that. I'm not going to be the guy that admits to dinging a fire truck. I was going to say, as we go through the expansion piece, in this drawing, there's more assistant chief offices than we have assistant chiefs at this particular time. So that's part of the growth potential?
Exactly, yes. Okay.
Thanks, carry on, James. Oh,
And if I could speak to the expansion in offices, the fire master plan spoke to training and public information and those type of positions. So that's what they're looking for at this time.
Yeah, there's the one training office listed there, and then there's a couple others, so I assume that was just for future expansion, so good thing.
Okay, so this slide shows the second floor, as it were, of the apparatus bay. So because we need a certain height within the apparatus bay, we do have the ability to create a mezzanine over top of our SCBA area, our workshop area, and our gear storage area. So this will provide room for much needed storage. That was a major piece that we noted doing our fire station tours, is there's never enough storage. This provides an opportunity for indoor training. We did see a few examples of that when we toured the Edmonton fire stations, where they can rappel off the edge of the mezzanine. So there is a training opportunity there. And then also it ties to the training tower, which will provide our roof access over top of the apparatus bay. On the left-hand side of the page, we have another mezzanine, which will be over top of the change rooms and a bit of the dorms. This is where we are hoping to house our mechanical systems, HVAC, boilers, and things of that like, so that we don't have to put it with a rooftop unit and store it outside. This is a piece that is definitely going to be reviewed with our construction manager with respect to cost, construction feasibility. But right now, we are anticipating all of our mechanical systems to be inside within a dedicated mezzanine or mechanical room. And then as part of that, we will have additional storage just south of the mechanical room, just as we need more storage in this. We have to have that area to access the mechanical room, so it is found space. It's not additional space within the footprint. Next slide, please. So the next few slides just help further where we're at with these plans. It's easy to look at a 2D plan, but if you can see it in a 3D model, it just helps explain and back up what can you actually see. So on the left side, we have our administration, where it shows the offices, our boardroom, and half of our vestibule. On the right-hand side, we have our entrance, our training room, and then another breakout room or a conference room. So if you take your phone, you can scan the QR code, and it will take you through the steps. And I encourage you to walk through our fire station. It works on both Apple and Samsung phones, so I encourage you to do that. You'll see QR codes throughout the rest of the document. I believe we have one for our training room and our kitchen. We have one for the apparatus bay. So I encourage you to go through those, as it does give you a real sense of what does this thing look like. Next slide, please. Okay, no, this is good. So on the left side, we have our dorms. All the rooms are going to be set up the same, except for our shift captain, who is going to have an attached office. In each dorm room, we are going to have a bed with storage and a desk. That is it. We are providing other facilities such as flex rooms, kitchen, lounge, and a fitness center. So we do not need to provide those same services within the dorm rooms. So we have really limited the space of our dorm rooms. Within the change facilities, these will act as the main washrooms for the facility, both male and female. But we do have dedicated sides where you can go into the change rooms. This will be shower facilities as well as gear storage, not gear storage, but clothing storage for those on call or living within the dorms.
Councilor Buckingham.
Thank you, Worship. James, I just had a question on the dorm room side of things. So you're saying we're limiting the space there, we're doing this because of this and that. I just wondered if there was any engagement with the staff or anything you saw, you or the chief saw in the fire hall tours that you did, that would make you think that this was the perfect thing to do. It would be nice if we could make it a little bigger. You know, is this something that could be revisited or is going to be possibly revisited, or is this like, this is what we're doing?
So thank you for your question. At this point, nothing is set in stone, other than we need a functional fire hall. We did tour 2 fire halls in Edmonton that had identical rooms to this, almost to the same square footage. A bed with storage underneath it, and a table and a chair. That's it. When we toured our fire station in St. Albert, they had a bed, a place for a chair, a TV, a cabinet where you could store clothing, and a desk. And we just found that that might not be best for the members. They come back from a fire call. Do we really want them isolating in their rooms, sitting down watching their own programs? Or would we like them interacting with others, debriefing on what just might have happened with this or that? So,
Executive, City Manager, sorry, City Clerk. Okay, sorry, yeah.
Just got it.
City Clerk.
That was a quick change.
Yeah, it was.
Just to go to the council's question about input from members, part of the process that we undertook prior to entering into awarding the architect is we did go look at fire stations around the province in the same sort of similar municipalities that we are. And we did have a member with the fire services with us. So we got their input through that feedback, as well as once we're done with this presentation to council, we will also be presenting it to the membership as well.
James, if you can continue, please.
Next slide, please. So on the left side, we have kitchen, lounge, and fitness. So we have a small fitness room, and then we do have a kitchen, which will have a dining area, and then the lounge attached to it. We did see some facilities where the lounge was a separate room. We have decided to make it more of a communal room, kind of an all-inclusive room. So that's why we did bring the lounge to the dining into the kitchen. On the right-hand side of the page, we have the SCBA, gear storage, and bay 1 of our apparatus bay. But again, I encourage you to use the QR code. It's a really awesome view. You're up on one of the mezzanines and you can see the entire apparatus bay floor. So. Next slide.
Sorry, James, are those QR codes available for the residents and community to look at?
Yes, so you should be able to scan it right out of this presentation. I've scanned it off of a printed copy this morning and it works for you.
Is that something that we'll be sharing in communications on any of our avenues for social media or our website? Does anyone know?
It is attached as part of the council package, so anybody that chooses to review the council package would have access to this.
I just tried it, it was cool. You're like, you can put it like a VR headset apparently and actually feel like you're in the room. So it's kind of weird. Except for it's great, so
We will add additional color to it. It won't be all gray.
yeah, that's fine. No.
Okay. So this slide shows what the front of fire station number 1 could look like. Obviously, we have to go through the energy modeling to determine how much glazing are we going to do, and that's the windows. What will the elevations look like, the awnings, all those pieces. This is just the architect's rendering of what it could look like. So when we do get our construction manager on board, they will help inform what this truly will look like. The QR code will also let you fly around the front of the building and take a look at it. Now if we jump to the next slide. So this is a view of the back of the fire station. So this shows the back doors to the apparatus bay where we do have our drive-through. We do have the dorm rooms that extend off the back. And then the high tower on the right-hand side of the page, that is our training tower. So there is an opportunity to have doors that open off of that, so you can rappel off of it. You can do aerial apparatus or the ladder truck training off of that. It's really quite a functional training piece. And it was included in all of the fire buildings that we did go around. So.
James, it's an architectural drawing, but what I'm seeing, I'm kind of liking, there's a slant roof on every portion of this fire hall. There's no flat roof design in this existing architectural drawing.
So right now, the apparatus bay would have a flat roof because we have the mezzanine on one side and the mezzanine on the other. So it just makes sense to have it flat. Now, when we get into the detailed design, we will start to look at our other civic buildings, in particular the operations center, as it has some sloped roofs, it has some flat roofs, and we will try to tie these two together. Of course, we want constructability, and we don't want to be back in here in a couple of years saying that the roof leaks and we have issues. So that will be a major piece that we are going to look at with whatever roofing membrane or roofing system we use.
I appreciate that, and I hope that we can get the water running off the roof rather.
Yes.
I know they're designed to drain off the flat roof, but I'd love to bring Councilor Baker into that conversation, but that's a whole separate conversation, so please continue.
Okay, next slide. So with that, we'll move on to next steps. The next big milestone we need to is secure the services of the construction manager. So the City of Lloyd project team will be securing the services of a qualified construction manager to provide pre-construction and construction management services. That package was released on our bids and tenders website last week and will close on October 29th, 2020. The construction management process allows us to go slow off the start, really dive into and critically think about what this fire station should be and how it should be constructed. For us to move fast at the end. It uses a lot of similar principles as IPD, collaborative approach, slow now, fast later. Of note, we have reached out to both of our local contractors, building contractors, regarding the construction management delivery piece, and both have completed construction management projects and are, from what I can gather, both very interested in going after this project. So that is a positive for the project. Pre-construction services includes detailed design development proofing assistance in conjunction with the architect and the City of Lloyd project team. Again, the construction manager, as part of their pre-construction services, will help inform the design. They will not drive it, they'll help inform it. And then we'll move into our construction and site development. So once we have completed our detailed design, the construction manager will take the packages and the drawings and start tendering out the site works, the footings and foundation, structural, electrical, and all the other pieces that go along to create a building. And we can break that up into manageable pieces or sequential pieces so that we can get something started while we're still designing. We don't need to have the paint colors picked out to do the foundation work. Let's get moving on something as quickly as we can and leave the rest for a logical design time. Next slide, please. With that, I'll turn it over to Mayor and Council for any questions or comments they may have at this time.
Questions or comments around the table? Councillor Fagan.
As far as expandability goes, James, and I don't know if there's a model that could be changing here in the near future, but I'm taking a look at perhaps ambulances. And if the municipality by chance decided that they wanted to take over ambulances, I don't know why they would do that. But if there would be an expansion, if there's an area there that would be expandable into that type of a building where we could house half a dozen ambulances.
With that, I'll bring up Lee to, I guess, comment on that. I don't know much about that, so I'll let Lee speak to it.
Hi there. The building has expandability features into it. I think if we went down that road, per se, there's chances that we could look at a model like that. I don't know if you would see half a dozen ambulances, but really at this point right now, we're really just looking at a functional fire service.
They're just trying to look forward.
There's always things that we can do. Something I don't think we want to expand the footprint of it, but there might be other options within the city as well.
And so as far as the lot itself, it might be able to, it's a fair size.
Yeah.
So there could be some potential there.
Potentially, yeah.
Okay. Great, thanks.
Councillor Torson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I actually had a question in a similar vein, but it's more in terms of the change of the size of the service over a number of years. How many more, we'll say, full-time firefighters living and working in this building could this accommodate, as the city grows to a larger size?
So I'll do my best. I'll listen to Doug and Lee. So we do have dorm rooms for 6 personnel. So we can staff a truck of 4, and then if we needed to include a ladder truck or an aerial apparatus truck, we could staff 2 out of this fire hall. So that does provide us that interim equipment expansion without having a second shift out of this fire hall.
Yeah. If I may, it's important to understand our current model of the paid on call. Our second response comes from Hall 2, which means that's where the paid on call would respond to. So the expandability of 2 would just expand to the 2 vehicles. We still have that current model of where the second response or the second and third one comes from our paid on call.
Okay, yeah, I was just thinking about 25 years from now, if there is, 2 crews on shift at once or something like that, or you need enough to staff 2 whole trucks, and if you need to have 4 or whatever for 2 whole trucks there at all times, just want to make sure that if it's short 2 dorm rooms, that we're not, shortchanging ourselves by something that's not that much square feet, but to be honest with you, from what I can see, you could probably make it work within the footprint of that building.
If I could, in the next 20 or 30 or 40 years as the city expands, There will probably be a requirement for a future fire service in a building down closer to where that expansion occurs to our population base, in order to make sure that we meet our run times to get to residents within those times.
Yeah, that's a good point. You'd really be looking at, with, that growth in population, growth in area, you'd be looking at a new location somewhere in the city to be able to maximize how quickly you can get there. So that makes probably more sense. I do have another question just about, I think this is something that's going to come up and residents are going to be curious as far as more on the aesthetic side, building materials. I know it is people living there, but at the same time, I think that some residents would potentially have an issue with it if it was wall-to-wall tile and stone everywhere and, gold-plated, if you will. I just want to make sure that as we're going through this, that we're making it functional and we're making it cost-effective so that, absolutely the operational cost side of things is important, but just ensuring that we're not gold-plating anything for that $7 million we're getting to.
And I can answer that. The main primary function that this team has been tasked with is making sure we have an operational fire hall, understanding that in certain areas, higher-end fixtures will prevent change-outs and save money in the long term. So those type of things, but absolutely, we are not looking for a gold-plated tap or a gold-plated finish.
Thank you.
City Manager.
Yeah, just further to Councilor Feigen's question about expansion, the lot, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong here, James, but I thought we were about a lot and a quarter, lot and a half, and so we do have an extra half lot already there. Plus, we own the lot to the east as well, that could be used for future expansion if need be, if we chose not to sell it. But there are options available for, at least from a land perspective, to have some tie in there.
Councilor Buckingham.
Thank you, Richard. That was part and parcel of my question, I guess, of that piece of land. We originally talked about making sure that we had available training space outside on this. Is that included anywhere in this outside parcel piece, or would that be a totally separate thing for outside training space?
Great question. So when we started the process, we did include, or we started going down the path of really diving into what an outside training facility looked like. We did pull that back as we do want our main objective to be the functional fire building or fire station. But we have included space within lots 10 and lot 7 to have to be able to expand with an outside fire training ground. So we do have that expandable area, and it is something that we have had significant discussion about, and how it ties back into our building. So we do have that ability, yes.
Any other questions around the table? Councilor Baker, do you have any questions at this time?
Yes, I have a couple of comments, Your Worship. First of all, it's really a great start on this new project and needed project that we are moving forward with in our city. There's a couple of things I'd like to point out. First of all, and I've said it before, and you know it, we should stick to the essentials and what's in, not a lot of frills, because those frills can be very expensive. The two things that always bother me, and have so in the last probably 10 or 15 years in our industry, is the type of roof and wall system skins that we're putting on this building. First of all, we're having roof problems with bonded roofs. They don't last very long. They're expensive to replace. And I think that, excuse me, that this roof should end up with it's not a 1.5 pitch minimum to the roof, not a flat roof, because they should self-drain. And I think you should look at a roofing product that will last maybe 40 years and it'll be worth the investment. Excuse me. The second thing is the wall cover. Excuse me, Your Worship. The wall covering, this thin-skin stucco that, for example, is on our science center building and is used extensively nowadays, I think it's the wrong product to be used. It I'm not sure how waterproof it is. I don't think it's that waterproof at all. And if it gets damaged, it never seems to get fixed. Water gets into the foam systems. So I think that you look at some kind of a, you know, whether it's cement board siding or something that will last. Number two is siding. If it's cement board or some of these new cardboard siding that they have, it also acts as, they have an R factor. And they'll add insulation to the exterior walls of the building. If you get damaged, you can always replace a piece of siding. And so those are the couple of things you can look at. The one issue I wonder about the way the water drains to the north on this elevation. Right over the overhead doors, you know, it's a fairly good roof. Whether you find that a problem or not, I'm not sure. How they can get rid of it, I'm not sure. But that's something for the architect may want to look at to avoid icing and those kinds of things that may happen at your north doors. So that's all I have for now, Your Worship. Good job, well done today.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll just look around the table one more time. Any further questions? Thank you, James, for the report. I think it brings us up to speed and gives the community an idea of what you're looking at. And as you said, not necessarily dreaming about, but trying to put out to give us something to work with and give you folks something to work with and give the fire department something to work with. So at that end. And I see 5.3 is up to James, so through the city manager, back to you, James. Please carry on.
Thank you. Moving on. So up next is engineering's 2020 Q3 capital infrastructure project update. The topic is to provide the committee with the 2020 Q3 capital infrastructure project updates. So with that, I'll just jump into the presentation as well. And if we can just go to the added table. Excellent. If we can go back up one. There. Okay. So we'll go through the 2019 carry forward projects and then we'll get into the 2020 projects. So overall, engineering services has had a very successful year in my books. We have completed an extraordinary amount of projects in a very reasonable time frame, given the current situation that we're in with COVID-19 and the pandemic and the restrictions being placed. So in 2019, carried forward into 2020, we had our drainage channel improvements, and that's the 8K. In other words, our 40th Avenue and 36th Street crossing. Our concrete box culverts have been completed as of Friday, and as of today, we are starting the road paving. That is the final road paving piece that we have to do as part of our 2020 work. So that project is within its final strokes, and we are looking to complete it this week, so by Friday.
Councillor Buck.
Thank you, Worship. I wanted to just bring up as a point for this, there's been lots of discussion in the community about this project in particular. People saying that that road was paved over the 40th Ave rehab project the year before. People saying, why did they start and stop? I thought it was the appropriate time to say, no, that wasn't paved over before we started doing this project.
Absolutely.
Secondly, there were underlying utility issues that stopped the project in the first place. And those have had to be moved first, and now we're moving on to this project. So just to be very clear that this is not the city putting out pavement and ripping up pavement a year later. It was kind of frustrating me recently, so it was the perfect time to bring up why and how it was done.
Well, this is one of those cases that there was items outside the city's control, I guess is the term I'd use, James, is that how engineering viewed it. When we have to work with outside agencies, namely utility providers, we're not at their beck and call. I'm afraid we have to work with their schedules and pieces like that. I think that was demonstrated very clearly. It's not our usual methodology. I know that engineering strives to ensure that things get there, and this, I don't want to explain exactly what happened. I'm sure you could, James, but that could take us a while. So that we know that it didn't go off as totally planned, but at the end of the day, the project will be completed to the best possible quality, correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. Quality is first and foremost for both our contractors and engineering services. There's no point doing a project if we are not going to put quality at the forefront. So yes, the intersection, in particular where we are paving as part of the culvert replacement project, was not paved as part of our 40th Avenue rehabilitation project. We stopped at our south limits and then we picked up again on the north side of 36th Street. So the work that we are repaving now has not been touched. It should have the same life cycle and rideability as the remainder of 40th Avenue. Great comment on a great question. Parkview Stormwater Management Pond, that project is fully complete. Our traffic signal timing and coordination project, and that would be our Highway 16 Centrex and Econolite system. That program has been extremely successful. We have noticed travel times east and west, both directions, reduced by upwards of 2.5 minutes. Now, if you take that over 10,000 vehicles, that is significant road time going through the city of Lloydminster. We've noticed the green bands improving, and that's the ability to hit one green, and then if you're with a platoon of vehicles, you get the next green and the next green. We've reduced the congestion between 50th Avenue and 49th Avenue, which was always a big point of contention along Highway 16. We've seen our reported concerns associated with Highway 16 way down. I don't know if we've received a reported concern. I probably will now, but we haven't received a reported concern regarding the traffic signals and their function for quite some time now. So that is a positive because it's reducing our effort we have to do in reviewing it. So it's a great program, and it's been a tremendous success. We're hoping that success continues to roll into Highway 17, which is further on in the sheet. 75th Avenue drainage improvements. Unfortunately, that one has been stalled indefinitely until acceptable working parameters with Husky or utility companies within the area can be agreed upon. So that one, project planning has been completed and project design. We just need to get agreeable construction terms. Neely Edmonds is completed, permanent rain gauges is completed, and we are collecting 24-hour, 7 days a week rain data, which will inform our sanitary master plans and our stormwater master plans. We have 3 areas around the city that are collecting non-stop rainfall data. Dangerous Goods Road, that project is completed. We are in the process of amending the traffic bylaw to include the updated truck routes and dangerous goods route in preparation for hopefully the implementation of the signs in 2020. Our 2020 Street Improvement Program design program, now this was designed, completed in 2019 to help us with determining our 2020 program. That is completed. And then, of course, our 2020 water and sewer replacement program design was also completed.
Can I just stop you for a second? As I go across the columns, your percent complete expenditure, just for anybody, including ourselves, that are looking at this and saying, okay, we had an approved budget, and let's use the last one as an example, the water and sewer replacement program design was budgeted for $54,880. It's $11,138, so 20% expenditure, but 100% complete. Is that, are we under budget on that? Is that the description I want to use?
Yes. So I would defer that question to, I guess, finance on the total dollar values that were carried over from 2019 into 2020. I believe if there was a program still active, the entire budget was carried forward, I believe. I'd have to confirm that with finance. I'm getting a funny look. But yes.
Well, engineering and money don't always go together. So
we have an approved budget. We have an approved contract with either a consultant or a contractor, and we're only going up to their approved budget. We might have carried over contingencies or third-party monies to cover outside things other than those under contract. But when we get into the estimated construction completed percent, that is the project and scope of work completed, and that's the one that matters to us, as invoices and progress payments still roll in over time as we wrap up these programs.
No, and that's the explanation, I think. Thank you. It just fills in, because if the work is completed, yeah, we haven't used the completed expenditure, there could be bills, in essence, in somewhere in the system between the contractor or the supplier to our finance department, because I do see this, the expenditures to date was taken as of September 15th, so if something rolled in after that date to now, it wouldn't show up.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So with that, we'll move on to our 2020 products. So airport taxiway rehabilitation, that project is 100% complete, but of course you'll see the percent complete expenditure of 0. We just haven't invoiced it yet, or it hasn't been through the system and included in our financial sheet. But it is 100% complete. That was the final taxiway rehabilitation that we had to do at the airport, so all taxiways have been completed. Sidewalk and road condition survey, so this is year 2 of 3. We have completed our data collection. We are going through our decision trees, is what they're called, on how we set the parameters for replacements, what comes first, and how do we determine a street improvement program. We are working through that in the final recommendations, but that program is within its final strokes as well. 2020 Street Improvement Program construction, we are 100% complete on that program. All paving is finalized. We are in the midst of final deficiencies and other cleanup work, but our street improvement program has been completed and has been completed for quite some time. 50th Avenue, or Highway 17 timing and coordination improvements. This is the implementation of our Centrex ATM system, or expansion of that system onto Highway 17. Our contractor, Can Traffic Services, they were in town last week and are complete half of the traffic signals. They are moving on to the traffic signals within the downtown core between 44th Street and 52nd Street. That is the last piece for the hardware improvements. We are anticipating that one to be a little slower than the first set, as we are dealing with congested traffic, congested construction sites, additional traffic accommodation, and of course just older infrastructure and poles. Once that's complete, we will get into the communication piece and the data collection, and then optimization of traffic. The Lloydminster helipad crossing improvements, we do have a plan in place. We have completed our project planning. We are now just working with the Lloydminster Hospital and Husky to get the necessary approvals to complete that project. And that is simply to maximize user safety or emergency personnel safety going from the helipad to the hospital. So it's just crossing safety improvements. Trails and Sidewalk Master Plan, we have completed the bulk of our stakeholder engagement and public engagement. We do have our final stakeholder piece and final public engagement piece coming up at the end of October. Flyers will be distributed and made available to communications to put out. But with that, that will drive the final data gathering for our Trails and Sidewalk Master Plan. We've had some great feedback regardless of the COVID-19 restrictions and not being able to do in-person stakeholder engagement. The online platforms have been fantastic, and a huge shout out to Communications Department for the assistance that they've provided us on that. It's been just fantastic. Community Services building and site demolition, 100% complete. That building came down quite easily. There was no surprises on that one. Bud Miller All Seasons Park Entrance Walking Trail, that was completed, and the trail is now open. Lakeland College and 22nd Street Walking Trail, that project is completed and now open to public. Our sanitary main replacement program, phase 2 construction, that's on 47th Avenue and on 40th Street. 2 blocks completed 100% with the roadways open to traffic.
James, just a comment on that one, if you wouldn't mind. The corner of 47th Ave and 40th Street, the stop sign or yield sign that should be there isn't there. I didn't go back one street up and look on 41st Street, but it's certainly missing from the construction that was done on 40th and 47th.
Yes, that has been brought to our attention. We are looking for the sign. Yeah.
Should know what to do with Operation Scarecrow.
Check the same place.
But we are getting the sign installed. Absolutely, it has been brought to our attention. We just need to get the sign put back up.
Please carry that, James.
If you have our sign, please return it.
There we go.
River intake dam construction. So that is the spur into the river to reduce the sediment buildup as part of our river intake structure. We do have all of our permits. We are working through that quite diligently. We did have a setback with our silk curtain. Our silk curtain is basically a giant bag that goes into the river to deter fish and other wildlife within the river, as well as maintain the sediment within our construction site. It did tear. They do tear. It's not detrimental to the project. It just happens with the amount of debris coming down the river, logs and other things. They do tear. We have to put a fish net in place to at least keep the fish out, and we've increased our sampling of the river to ensure that we are maintaining our limits for sediment within the river.
James, do you have a completion dates, tentative completion date for that project? Will it be in 2020?
I believe it is to be about mid-November is when we're looking to be out of there. We are installing the rock riprap. We are building our pad out. Once the rock riprap is done, we will remove a section, put in our steel sheet pile, and then we will be finished.
Okay, excellent.
Our central business district replacement program planning and design services. So administration and engineering services is continuing to review the scope of work on that project to ensure that we are getting what we want and ensuring that the plan going forward downtown is what we want. That includes implementation and inclusion of the DART. That was recently passed. We know we have underground services that we have to deal with, and then of course just the significant impact to downtown. We just are revisiting that to make sure we are maximizing the budget that we have and ensuring that the plan we get is what we want. So we are in the process of reviewing that, but we are still anticipating to move forward with some phase of that program. Northwest Drainage Channel, Phase 2 construction. Our contractor is nearing completion. We have completed all of our earthworks. They are installing the erosion control matting as we speak, the pyromat, and they are continuing on as per schedule. We are roughly a week behind on that one. Just we did find some varying site conditions than what we thought we had out there, including excessive topsoil thicknesses. But we are working with the contractor to gain those days back. But we do not have a concern that we won't complete that program. East Drainage Channel Improvements Lake J Control Structure. So this program was put on hold temporarily while we waited for our ISIP grant funding to either be accepted or rejected. Excuse me. It was not approved for this project, so we did proceed with procuring a design consultant, and we are in the process of completing our project planning, design, and procurement of the structure in preparation for construction in 2021. Our 2020 water and sewer replacement program, that is 100% complete. Our 2021 street improvement program design services, we are nearing completion. We're just finalizing the drawing review, and then that project will be completed, and that will help drive which sections of road we do as part of our 2021 construction, as well as 2022 and years beyond. Other projects to note: Fire Station Number 1, design and construction. We just received an update on that one, so we are progressing at a perfect pace as to where we should be within the process. Once we get our construction manager on board, that's when the decisions and the process will really take off. Again, we're going slow now so we can go fast at the end. We are still very confident that we will have the occupancy of the winter of 2021. Doug would like it earlier, but that's where we're sitting at. Airport terminal building maintenance. So this was the concrete sidewalk in front of the airport. That project is completed. We did expand the accessible aprons, so they are much wider and much longer to ensure that maximum accessibility for the departures and arrivals doors at the airport. And we were able to complete all concrete works in front of the airport terminal, so we did receive some fantastic pricing on that one. And then, of course, lastly, our concrete intersection construction, or our 44th Street and 62nd Avenue project, and that's turning the intersection into a concrete roadway or a rigid pavement. We do have a design consultant. We are working through the project planning, project design, in preparation to basically get tender packages going, a contractor procured, so that as soon as we can in the spring, we are hitting that project running. Because it is a large program and we only have a limited construction window, so that one is progressing quite well. So as you can see, we have had a very successful year amidst some of the constraints that have been put upon us. That comes with support from council and administration, as well as the mayor. All of our contractors, they all came to the table and understood the challenges that were placed upon us due to the late tendering of our programs. So a huge kudos goes out to all of our contractors, as well as the engineering services staff. They really stepped up and helped make these projects successful. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mayor and Council for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Questions, comments? James, I think you thoroughly covered it off, but as you can see around the table, we'll ask Councillor Baker for any input, but thank you for the report. It's great to see that we're still moving ahead, as it was noted on the 48th and 36th. That will be finished, and that people will have smooth sailing going south from that perspective. And certainly the work forward, I think, again, some of these projects people don't realize. They don't affect us each and every day. I've had a lot of the questions asked about the north end of town, wondering what we were building. And I said, well, we're just straightening some things out, and that has to happen. So I'm looking forward to seeing the results of a lot of the work, especially in stormwater, because we know that's an issue that this council hears about quite regularly when we have issues with flooding. And if we can see that water move better, I think it'll be a real improvement to the community and felt overall, because no one likes to be flooded out anywhere along the line. So thank you for that. I don't see any other comments. I'll turn to Councillor Baker here and see if, Councillor Baker, did you have any questions?
No, I'm good with this.
Great. Well, thank you for the update, James. I guess we'll expect one back for the new council in the new year, saying this is the total wrap-up of projects from that perspective. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Moving on to agenda item number 5.4. I will go to City Manager.
I'll be
Stepping up. Okay.
Thank you, Rick, for 5.4, Lloydminster Planning District Commission Official Community Plan Commitment. I'll ask Anthony Andre to come forward and present.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Anthony.
The purpose of the report is to provide the committee with information pertaining to an application submitted by the RM of Britannia to amend the future land use map concept within the Lloydminster Planning District Commission Official Community Plan. Administration is currently reviewing the proposal to designate approximately 100 acres of lands immediately east of the city for industrial development. The subject lands are adjacent to the Sask Industrial Park, identified as industrial within the city's MVP. The amendment also aligns with the Northeast Area Structure Plan, which also identifies the adjacent lands within the city as future industrial. The southern portion of subject lands currently fall within the highway corridor policy area within the OCP, while the northern portion is within the agricultural policy area. The RM does not currently have lands designated for industrial purposes and has identified these lands as having potential access to rail. On September 25th, 2020, administration initiated a 21-day referral period and circulated referrals to internal and external agencies and adjacent property owners within the city limits. The proposal was presented presented at the September 11th, 2020 LPDC regular meeting, where the Commission recommended support of the amendment. Complementary bylaws will be adopted jointly by the City of Lloydminster, the RM of Britannia, and the RM of Wilton. Subsequent map amendments to the rural municipality of Britannia number 502 Lloydminster Planning District zoning bylaw will be required prior to the approval of industrial developments within the subject lands. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. Questions or comments? Councilor Torson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I know you noted that within our Northeast Area Structure Plan, when we looked at this, we thought that there was some fit there with what we were doing in the within the city. Just to be clear, there's already pipeline activity and things like that going on within this area anyways, correct?
Yeah, there's a fair amount of pipelines within these lands.
This is one of those ones where, as a member of council, it was a challenge just because I think the RM of Britannia has, had plans and anticipated to move forward on this for some time now, and us taking as long as we did, not that I'm pointing fingers at anyone, but we definitely had to manage that relationship at that table based on how long it took us to get that plan together and so that they can do this. So, it's good to see that it's coming forward and that we're having an opportunity to support our neighbors in, what some of their aspirations are with their areas as well.
Any other questions or comments? Councilor Fragment?
Yeah, I would echo what Councilor Thorson is saying there as well. But when you take a look at the detail on that plan, you can see why it takes that long.
Oh, for sure.
And so, no, it's good for them. I'm glad that we were able to help them out. I know it was a little bit of a point for them, but it's very nice to see. But it's also, I was very impressed with the amount of detail that went into that plan. It's incredible.
Councilor Baker, do you have any questions or comments?
No, sir.
All right. I'll look around the table one more time, not seeing any. Thank you very much, Anthony, for that report, and we'll look forward to seeing it come forward.
Thank you.
If someone would kindly step out and grab Councilor Buckingham. Okay, thank you. Let's take it on this. Moving on to agenda item 5.5, City Manager.
Thank you, Worship. For 5.5, 2020, quarter 3, procurement activity, I'll ask Peter to come forward and present.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and Council.
Good afternoon.
I am here to provide the committee with the quarter 3 procurement activity report. The options are that the committee accept this report as information, or that the committee requests more information and the item brought forward for future governance and priorities committee meeting. This is in alignment with with the open and responsive government to disclose administration and council approved projects for transparency. So I will not go over each detail of the report, but I will open up the floor for any questions.
Any questions or comments for Mika? I think the report is very thorough, Mika, and lays it out very clearly as to the methodology used for procurement, be it an RFP, RFQ, from that perspective, and certainly. So I think the clarifying factor is we see different numbers here. So what made this list from that perspective? I know there's council approved ones as well as administration. So do you just comment that any other administration below a certain level did not make this list?
Absolutely. So according to the policy, the procurement and purchasing policy, any procurement or public procurement over $75,000 generally, which we are required to publicly procure for goods and services, which is approved by administration, will be recorded here. Anything below that, that administration approves, does not make it on this list. Yeah, and then again, for construction or anything that is over $200,000 comes to council for approval. So that's what you will see under the council approved column.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions on anything on that list? Councilor Baker, do you have any questions regarding 5.5, the procurement activity?
No, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Last call from around the council table. I think that the one good thing is we get to see this 3 times. First, usually the GPC, followed by a council meeting, and now the summary that's presented for and puts it in a good light. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to 5.6. The city manager.
Thank you, Worship, for 5.6, governance document review, quarter 3 update. Ask Dan Thompson to present.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and Council.
Good afternoon, Dan.
In alignment with the governance document review policy, I'm here today to provide you with the Q3 governance document update. I will just address the elephant in the room right away, and there is a typo on this IR, so it says 12, but it is in fact 8. My apologies for that. Won't happen again moving forward. As you can see, 10 new governance documents came up for review in this quarter. Also in this quarter, we passed 8 new governance documents, all of which were bylaws. I won't go through everything in detail, but I will just note that I hope Council can appreciate the challenges administration has faced this year. I recognize we're not looking like the greatest batting average right now, but we are confident that in Q4 we're going to wrap everything up into Hannah's park here. There are quite a few big documents on this list that we're looking to get to and get through, so bear with us and we'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Questions or comments? Councilor Torres.
Thank you, Your Worship. One of the ones that I noted that was a Q1 document that we haven't seen at county council yet is the fire bylaw. I was just curious, when are we expecting to see that one specifically? If I recently reviewed the fire master plan, and that was an important bylaw to, as I understand it, set the service standard and define it better as to what council actually is approving for them to do. So I was just kind of curious where we're at.
Thank you. I can actually say that we finalized a full rewrite of the fire bylaw as well as the service policy. It's gone through to ELT for review, and the next stop will be coming forward at GPC and council. So it should be next month, GPC.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Just for a quick summary, how many can the next council expect coming forward then, Dan, for documents? If we cleared 18 off the docket, what do you left to throw it at the new council?
It's Q4, it's a lot of Q4s.
Well, I was just going to say it'll be so much easier for a new council to do their orientation and learn all the policies when they have to approve them all in their first meeting. So good for us. Just kidding, Dan. You do great.
There's a 18 left on here to come forward. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. There's 18 to come forward. Some of them will come forward in the review of a repeal policy where bylaws will also that'll narrow them down. And I think kind of looking at them, that'll be city manager and city clerk discussion of what's appropriate to throw at a new council right out of the gate.
Yeah, absolutely, because certainly there was a great list, and that was terrific, and I think the work that's been done and what changes, as we know, City Hall is a flowing place. Things come and you don't always see what's coming, so I think that you've whacked up quite a few of them, and with the rest of the team of administration, I'm sure you'll reach that goal, which is terrific. Councillor Dodge.
Yeah, thanks, Dan, for the work that you do, and it's the old story, in the absence of rules, people make their own up as they go. It's important for us as a city to be in control of the direction and policies and the kind of city we want to be. So again, there's been a lot of work, and there's a breadth of bylaws and governance policies here that I'm pleased to see from where we've come in 4 years especially. So thanks to you and to your boss. He was manager there for a second earlier today, so I don't know if that's recognition of his work.
Thank you.
Any other comments around the table? Councillor Baker, do you have any comments regarding 5.6, the government, 5.6, the document review?
No, I'm good.
Well, thank you very much, Dan, for that, and keep up the good work, and I know the next council will be excited to look forward to working through this process.
Thank you.
With that, could I look for a motion to take a brief recess?
So moved.
Councillor Diachuk, seconded by Councillor Buckingham. Any further discussion? Not seeing any, all in favor? How do you vote, Councillor Baker?
I'm in favor.
Thank you. Carried. So we'll take, let's say, 8 minutes, try and get back. At this time, we will move to item number 6, which is governance and priority matters. 6.1, I'll look to the city manager.
Thank you, Your Worship. For 6.1, bylaw number 6-2020, emergency management, I'll ask Jordan Luke to come forward and present.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Thanks for having me here today. Here to present the draft bylaw number 06-2020 Emergency Management Bylaw. Topic, to provide the committee with a proposed update to the Emergency Management Bylaw. A little bit of the background. The City of Lloydminster Charter identifies the Emergency Management Act of Alberta as being enforced throughout the City of Lloydminster in its entirety. The last Emergency Management Bylaw was adopted in 2018 and was consistent with the Act at that time. Recently, the Government of Alberta clarified the Emergency Management Program through the adoption of the Local Authority Emergency Management Regulations that have come into force January 1st, 2020. These regulations that have come into force more clearly define the requirements of items to be included in emergency management programs and municipal bylaws. The new requirements are included in the proposed bylaw number 06-2020 Emergency Management Bylaw. The proposed bylaw has been reviewed and validated by the Alberta Emergency Management Agency to ensure consistency with the legislation. Changes in the new bylaw that are realigned with the newly adopted Local Authority Emergency Management Regulations. Section 4, Emergency Advisory Committee. Section 6, Emergency Management Agency. Section 7, Command, Control, and Coordination. All other local authority emergency management regulations were already incorporated in the existing emergency management bylaw and have been transferred into the proposed bylaw. Adoption of the proposed bylaw will ensure the City of Lloydminster is in compliance with both the Emergency Management Act and regulations as set out by the Government of Alberta. If the proposed bylaw is adopted, the prior version of the bylaw will be repealed. Our options today: that the committee accept this report as information and that the item be brought forward to a future regular council meeting for decision. Number 2, that the committee request more information and the item be brought forward to a future regular council meeting for decision. Or 3, that the committee request more information and that the item be brought forward to a future Governance and Priorities Committee meeting.
Thank you, Jordan. Question, comments? Councillor Buckingham.
Thank you, Worship. Thanks, Jordan. Just wondering, as we're reviewing this draft, under 6.3 of the draft, it's the addition of members appointed pursuant to the Act. So we've got places like the RCMP, our ambulance providers, healthcare services, health authorities, school divisions, college. I just wondered if there was any provision under this, or should there be a provision under this to incorporate our mutual aid partners that surround the city?
No, it's an excellent question, Councillor. So how we're redefining our program will be multiple standing committees as set up underneath our advisory committee, which is made up of mayor and 2 councillors. So within that, we'll have members that are risk owners as well as response agencies. So we'll see a lot of our response agencies come into that standing committee as a capacity.
Yeah, I just wondered if it needed to be defined under 6.3, as there's so many things that are defined, but there's no provision for mutual aid there, so.
Yeah, I was going to say that I understand the point, but that would be more on the operational implementation piece as opposed to our bylaw, which really refers just to us as a city. So if you want to operationalize this at some point, you might talk about seeking help, but that might be under a different sort of set of rules and regulations in terms of what you're doing. But this specifies what our city is responsible for doing.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor, and it's something I'll look into in terms of the mutual aid partners, and just not to further confuse it with our Borderlands Mutual Aid Agreement, which is the northeast of Alberta, northwest of Saskatchewan. So I'll look into it.
Councillor Buckingham.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. Point well taken. I just think that this if we're going to talk about this, is the opportunity to list those agencies as places, because we do have, like Jordan has said, we do have a Borderlands agreement and multiple mutual aid agreements with agencies around our cities. So, God forbid we have to call in on something like this. It would be nice to have everybody around the table on the same page for ease of use in public safety.
Point well taken, and I think Jordan, we can explore that, but I think that I see both sides of that conversation because it becomes an operational maybe issue as much as any. Councilor Torres.
Thank you, Your Worship. So, when you were presenting, Jordan, when you were presenting the question Councilor Buckingham had asked, you said there would be risk owners on subcommittees. So does that mean like some of like the larger industrial within the city may be part of a planning committee that would relate to maybe the risk that their industry would present to the city?
Absolutely, and without speaking out of turn, I would be looking to our large industrial partners in the city, our Husky, both Husky facilities, as well as a co-op for both their bulk station and ADM, as well as probably our public school division, Catholic school division.
Okay. Okay, that makes perfect sense because you would want partners like that at the table who truly understand the risk of their facility and to be able to provide the best advice to make the best plan for any potential event that could, theoretically occur in the future. So, thank you.
Councilor Monroe.
Yeah, so just when Councilor Buckingham alluded to mutual aid, I just wonder though under 6.3, when we look at services that our city requires but that we don't currently provide, so in regards to Lloydminster Rescue Squad, they provide a service that we don't otherwise provide. So would they not necessarily should be included under 6.3? Like if we're including WPD ambulance or health services, like it's a service that we would otherwise need to provide if they weren't correct.
It's a great question.
Yeah.
So how it works in the way it's wrote here, as well as through the act and regulations, it's just supposed to be other stakeholders, just generally throughout the community. And it's wrote for all the province of Alberta and all of our local authorities, which range from very small RMs to a mid-sized urban center like ours. So we can't capture them all in there, but they will need to be there for especially certain risk-specific plans that we have.
Okay.
Okay, Councilor Baker. Councilor Baker, I'm just attaching you to you're just on my phone now. So you're live in the meeting, Councilor Baker.
Yeah,
Councilor Dachek.
yeah, I was going to say on 6.3.8 though, you have that discretion, director considered to be of assistance to the agency.
Right.
So, those are, keep in mind and reach out and if you have those contacts, you can add. But again, I get it, you have a template, it's the core foundation.
Question I had, fire department. Hello, Councilor Baker, we got you. You're here. I just haven't called on you yet.
Pardon me?
I haven't called on you yet. Just give us a moment here.
Oh, I'm sorry, Your Worship.
Nope, no problem.
I just keep going dead on me, so.
Okay. Nope. Can you hear me there?
Pardon me?
Can you hear me from that
Yes,
perspective?
very well, I can hear you now.
Okay. Good. Good.
Thank you.
You're
Just
welcome.
stay the way it is?
Yeah. Well, I won't touch a thing.
Okay.
Jordan, the fire department. Maybe I missed it here out of all the services because I looked at above the agencies and maybe I missed the fire department there and then under 6.3. So where does the fire department fit under this, or fire services, I should say?
Yes, so the fire services isn't included in the agency as that general governance of emergency management program for the city, but they'll sit specifically in one of the more important seats right for our risk response agencies,
Okay.
and really have a hand in developing and giving us guidance for our hazard-specific plans. Then our public safety, like peace officers will do that.
Okay. Any other questions around the table as we look at this? Councilor Baker, I'm not sure, we're on the 6.1, which is the bylaw number 06-2020, emergency management.
Yep.
Is there any questions?
I'm not hearing the presenter though.
Okay. Yeah.
But that's, I've read it, I mean, but
Did you have any questions?
no, not really, no.
Okay. All right. I did want to just point out, and it's, as we've, a couple things. We talked about the charter today, and this is often a discussion point. How do we follow which way? And this one is very clearly stated in the charter. We follow the government of Alberta's emergency measures layout, and that's noted here. And I just wanted to bring that back to the table so that people hear that, because I think that's very, very important. Since COVID and the pandemic there, it falls under health due to the legislation, and that's governed by the Saskatchewan Health Act. In this case, if we had an emergency measures call or emergency management, it would fall under Alberta, and that's the way it would be, no matter what was going on the other side of the city, on the outskirts.
Absolutely, Your Worship.
Thank you. No further questions or comments? Okay, I'll let you do that. Okay.
Councillor Baker, if I can get you to hang up, I'm going to call you on the speakerphone so you can be here.
All right, we're going to try this again and see if we can get Councilor Baker connected for the next one. Moving on to 6.2. City Manager.
Thank you, Your Worship. For 6.2, draft business license bylaw, I'll ask Brian Hill and Dan Hobson to come forward and present.
If you can just give Doug a moment, gentlemen, as city clerk, to connect Councilor Baker. Hopefully we can get him included in that. Oh.
Councillor Baker, you're on the main phone now.
Thank you very much.
There we are. Got you back, Councilor Baker. Welcome back. We're moving on. Good, good. We're moving on to 6.2. Through the City Manager, Ryan, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Councilors. Dan and I are here to provide the committee with the draft business license bylaw. So for the lean pilot project, administration is reviewing how businesses get a license to operate in Lloydminster. We started this project in late July 2020 and it's still currently underway. So the main objectives of this project are to streamline and demystify the business license process for all of our businesses, to demonstrate value to the customer in business license enrollment, to support the city's open for business economic priority, and to create a simplified and well-defined business license bylaw, which is what we're presenting today. So a few key summaries that are included in this bylaw are the clarification that the purpose is to regulate businesses located in Lloydminster and actively seeking business in Lloydminster, reducing the business categories for simplification and a more streamlined process, increasing registration to improve our database for business entities within the city, establishing term options, full year and half year, determining license requirements for each business location that is public facing as opposed to just every location, removing the distinction between flavored tobacco and just regular tobacco, reclassifying farmers markets under public markets, establishing rules for licensing public markets to be by the organizing host. The Lloyd-X continues to be exempted as an economic driver. Or remove municipal red tape and establishing that the business must comply with all provincial and federal legislation. We're moving towards a more streamlined online application process, and we're going to simplify the fee structure with our goal of having minimal change to the cost of businesses or revenue to the city. And we're also going to implement standard finance charges. So Dan's going to speak more to the details in the bylaw, and I'll turn it over to him.
So I would just like to go through what we consider some of the highlights on the bylaw itself. So if we could just go starting with section 4 of the draft bylaw proposed. As Ryan noted there, we're really trying to look at focusing in on and expanding of what conducting business and what a business license in the city of Lloydminster would look like when required. So we utilize actively seeking or locating a business within the city. And again, we're trying to broaden our business community horizons from that standpoint. Moving forward to 4.4,
we're looking at addressing and clarifying when multiple licenses are needed or not. Ultimately, if you have a public-facing location, it needs to be licensed. So if you have a furniture retail business with a warehouse at 2 separate locations, you would need 1 license. But if you're a franchisee in a restaurant, for example, with 4 different locations, you would need 4 different licenses. Moving further down to 4.7. So from the exemptions, fairly standard for the most part. We just want to note that garage sales are in there, the X grounds is in there, and anyone working from the municipal, provincial, or federal standpoint is also in there. And anyone that is exempted from other legislation is in there. But a key change with this section, which we are asking, is that businesses still get a business license free of charge, so they can utilize some of the value propositions from the city's economic development department, and they can be a part of our business community, and we know that they're there. Moving forward to 4.8, just a little note on public markets. So as Ryan noted, that it's including the farmers markets now. It's a bit of a catch-all that we're looking to utilize public markets for, so pop-ups and mobile vendors, etc. And really what this is doing is being pegged to the organizer of a public market. So, for example, if the X Grounds is hosting a trade show or anything at the X Grounds, they'd be exempt. But if another entity were non-exempt hosting at that facility, they'd be required to ensure that either A, all the businesses participating are licensed, or they can utilize the public market vehicle to create an umbrella effect and license all the businesses. Further moving on, I'm going to skip quite a bit because it's all fairly standard there, and jump to section 7. So a business license here, so we've introduced a half-year business license. So at any point, a business can come in and utilize the 6-month business license. This is cleaning up a seasonal or temporary license. And we have different businesses that at different times of the year, that's when their season is. So this can be utilized at any point for that 6-month time period. In section 8, the categories, as Ryan also noted, we've tried to streamline these the best we can. So they're largely still based on square footage. But I'll just want to point out that we've introduced a non-residence license A and license B. A license A, we're looking at those businesses that are right on the fringe area of the city that largely consider themselves part of the Lloydminster business community. So we're really looking at trying to capture them within our business license profile as well. Non-resident B would just remain the same as an out-of-town business that we're all familiar with in our current business license bylaw. We've also introduced a special youth license. This was just as part as the BizKids program or something like that, where we're really trying to foster entrepreneurship in the youth. It's just another avenue where it's very affordable, but it shows them what actual businessing procedures are like. And again, at the end, that's section 8.1.1 and 8.12. As Ryan noted, the tobacco retailer surcharge, we've tied flavored tobacco and tobacco together as one, so they're no longer 2 separate charges. And cannabis retailer surcharge is there as well. And these fees remain as status quo today, and they are on top and beyond of what the current business license cost would be, so they are a surcharge. In section 9, we've added a vehicle for an appeal if there is a case where a bylaw is revoked or suspended. Just speaking from experience, it does not happen often at all, but we wanted to provide a vehicle there for an appeal. And at that point, I'll stop before we kind of get into the proposed fee structure, if there are any questions at this point.
Councilor Monroe.
Just a couple. So there's been some changes to this. So just wondering about communication to our residents so that everybody's aware of these changes so that nobody is not in alignment with the bylaw. What are we planning on doing for that?
Well, at this point, this is basically our first avenue of putting it forward. So we obviously wanted to get council's feedback at this point in time. We have vetted this through some of our public stakeholders, nonprofit groups that we partner with from an economic development standpoint, and there were no concerns brought forward about this bylaw at this time. And through that
we'd be working with communications to develop a program, because the bylaw itself being some substantial changes, the whole process of business licensing is really what the lean program is focusing on changing and making very much streamlined, so there'll be ample communication around that. I understand this, communicating for this first, along with that, because that's going to follow.
Right, for sure. There just may be quite a few businesses in town that obviously don't align currently with this. And once this new bylaw is passed, just not everybody, unfortunately, not everybody tunes into our council meetings. Not everybody is necessarily aware and goes back and reads the documents, the agendas that are available, right? So it's important for them to be able to have information provided so that they can obtain the necessary documents and licenses that they need. So I just want to make sure that appropriate communication would be going out to our residents.
We will take that back and we'll present a plan moving forward for council.
Thanks, sir.
Okay, Councillor Dutchett, followed by Councillor
Thanks,
Thompson.
Rick. So I had an individual approach me and say that they were looking at doing some photography. So they wouldn't bring anybody into their business, but they would go out in the community and shoot weddings and parties or whatever it is. So where do they fit in there? Because it wouldn't be a home-based business. They wouldn't have a business place located anywhere in the community. What kind of license would they need?
So sorry, they're not a resident of this?
No, they're a resident of the city, but they will not be doing any photography whatsoever within their home.
I'm still not knowing the full details of
If
it.
they're just going to be a photographer that wants to, is going to
Taking
be available,
photos.
yeah, you know, like your family has an event, they'll go shoot your photos and send them to you by email, and then you can do whatever you want with them, and they'll charge you a fee for doing it.
Yeah, so I would put forward that they would follow in this a general A, which in our current one, which would be a home base. I realize they're not conducting business in their house, but their still office would be out of their house, if that's fair to say, based on my assumptions right now.
Because on the forms that are required by individuals that if you're renting, the homeowner or the leaseholder has to sign off on it. And one of the questions is, do you have people in there bringing people into your home? And they say no. And in fact, they refuse to fill it out.
Yeah, I think I guess I'm not really going to comment on their lease situation.
No, but it's kind of, they're saying there's nobody coming to my house and yet I have to do a home-based business. But really, I don't conduct any of my business in my house. So I guess the question is, which kind of business license do they buy? Because they want to buy a business license, but when you buy a business license, you're going to say, where are you going to conduct your business from?
We generally look at what's your office or base or home base for your business.
So they'll do none of it at home, other than editing the pictures.
No.
So I don't.
So could it be considered like a mobile?
I don't know. I'm asking. Like that said, you know, that was it just come up here in the last little while. I was trying to wrap my head around, so I was reading through this. I'm trying to figure where do they plug into this and how do you make it? And we can discuss it after. But I was just because it's more on clarity's sake for individuals who are in that category. Okay, that's it.
Discussion. Councillor Thorson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I had 2 points on this when I was going through it. One is the not-for-profit side of things, to be able to get that, basically get the business license like you were describing, some of the specific groups that would get an exempt business license, fee, but they still get access to all the same information. I think that's very important. I get the emails in my previous job from the City of Lloydminster's Economic Development, and it comes to me because my email was on the business license. But some of the information, especially through COVID, has been incredibly useful and valuable, and the surveys and things like that that come through are very useful, and I think they would be useful to not-for-profits or those exempt groups all the same. So I think that that's a great idea to ensure that that information is making its way to everyone that needs it. The other thing I was going to ask about is on the youth, not the child care, that's different, but the youth license for lemonade stands and things like that. I'm assuming that is voluntary. That's not mandatory that we charge a business license for that, because you see this on the news once or twice a year, or on YouTube where Bylaw comes after some little kid who was trying to run a lemonade stand, and I don't think that's the community we're going for. So I'm assuming it's voluntary. It's not voluntary?
So the garage sales and the lemonade stands, those ones are all exempt.
Oh.
It's the ones that are actually running business.
Okay, well, I thought it said the youth one is $25 if you wanted to do one.
You're correct.
But it's voluntary to pay the $25. Okay. Thank you.
So sorry, just to
Councilor
confirm.
Monroe, go ahead.
Now I'm confused a little bit. So all the youth is voluntary or it's not voluntary?
Sorry, we were talking about the lemonade stand,
Yeah.
things
Right.
like that in nature.
But other youth business is not voluntary. It's required, correct?
If it's a business, correct, yes.
Okay. Even though under legislation for the provincial and federal government, they, under the age of 18, do not have to file taxes and cannot themselves get a license registered with the government of Saskatchewan. But we're saying that locally they have to, but provincially and federally they can't. And they do not have to file taxes until they reach a certain dollar amount. We're still requiring them locally to do that.
We can review the legislation if it exempts them from business licensing.
Under the age of 18, it does in the province of Saskatchewan. They can't even, if they have a business, say they try to register that name, they legally cannot. Someone over the age of 18 has to be on that. So in the province of Saskatchewan, anyways, I don't know about the province of Alberta. So just if it doesn't align with provincial and federal, I just wonder how locally we can require it. I mean, I think it does entice people to exactly follow good business practice, and there's some responsibilities that lie with that. But just in that retrospect, maybe just review that to see how that works.
Just to answer how we can be more restrictive. A bylaw, we can be more restrictive, so if the speed limit is set in a municipal area at 50 kilometers an hour, we could set it at 30 kilometers an hour because we can be more restrictive. So we can always be more restrictive than me and can be less restrictive. Just if you're asking what the legislative mechanism would be.
Thank you, City Clerk. Councilor Torgerson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just one comment that I think, I was too busy talking about the details, but just in general, I think that it's great that we went through the process on this lean project and found a way to kind of cut red tape and do what some of the other levels of government are saying that we should be doing. It sounds or it looks as though it was a relative success so far. A couple details to work out before we get to the end, but it'd be good to see if there's other city-related activities that we can apply the same method to see whether or not we can be more efficient as a level of government.
Councilor Buckingham.
Thank you, Worship. Thanks, guys. I'm pleased that we're reviewing this because I'll be honest with you and tell you that my business license application I did not enjoy. And I've heard that from other people. So if we can clean that up and make it a little less burdensome and I have to run from one city facility to another, that kind of thing, right? I'm pleased that we're getting down that road because we should be open for business and make it as easy as possible within the rules to do so. So thanks for reviewing this. It needed some work, in my opinion.
Councilor Batchel.
Yeah, on 8.7, the only thing, I like the intent of it, the spirit of it. I would write it in 2 sentences though, where the ideas are, you've got 2 huge ideas put together in there. So when I first read it, I think that paper deliveries, basically, you need to need a license for it. I would break it up and say, then these, for example, but however, these are not required, and use those as exemplars to say where you're not. So that it's separated away from what really you're talking about and wanting to encourage, which is the young business entrepreneurs. So it's just a way of writing it where I peel it apart. Because it's 2 big ideas in 1 sentence, and that's all we'll do.
Thank you. We'll all shut up for that.
City Manager.
Just to follow up on Councilor Thorson's around the lead project in the 21 budget, as well as in our business plan, we've identified the lead project as, we haven't identified the exact processes yet, but we've got a number that we've internally identified that kind of meet the long list, and now we got to make the short list, assuming it gets approved in the 2021 budget. So we are taking this to another level. This was a bit of a trial run on the lead project, and it was very successful. We learned a lot through it. Denise and her team had a group of 10 or 15 staff members that took part in this, and it was very good process, and we plan on expanding that into the future for sure.
Thank you, City Manager. Councilor Monroe.
Sorry, just to follow up with that one. I guess 8.7 again, with the youth, it's a little bit confusing for me because an individual who wants to earn money and market themselves shoveling driveways on the regular, they can market themselves, they can provide whatever print media and mailboxes, and they can earn substantial money without having to have a business license. So I don't know if it should have in there something about marketing or, right? Because really, if you're allowing youth to do, which I think it's great, you should, but if you're allowing you to do certain jobs, yard work, snow shoveling, without requiring a business license, then there should be some stipulations around that on what they can and cannot do. They can do this without it, but they cannot provide marketing for themselves or, right? I don't know, because then you're hindering the individuals, the youth that do have a business license. I just don't think we need to make it one or the other. Sorry, it's not fair.
I understand. I think that,
I'm sure they'll be reviewing the business license bylaw before they go out with their shovel.
I know our police officers will be right on it.
I really want to compliment administration on the red tape reduction. That's been very clearly direction from both government of Alberta more than Saskatchewan, but has been mentioned by both governments. And I think that we often hear from business in our community, get out of our way. And I think this is one of those ways, and Councillor Buckingham alluded to it as someone that's just recently experienced. A couple other things, I appreciate the 6 month. I think that meets that seasonal need in many different facets, over the summer or over the winter, fall, spring, depending on what kind of business they have. And from that perspective, if businesses are planning on, I had one business that they decided after they bought their business license in January, business ceased in the end of May or June, and was disappointed that he had to buy a full year license. So I don't know if that would apply, but certainly that perspective. And I think that the more streamlined process of someone being able to come to City Hall or wherever, to the Operations Center, wherever they have to go, that is, again, a benefit, because we've heard very clearly from businesses that had to go back and forth across town once or twice just to get a business license. So I think all in all, I appreciate it very much. I've got 2 questions. One you kind of answered, but I'll just bring it back up again. First, though, businesses that move across the city, if you're located on the Saskatchewan side of the city and you move to the Alberta side of the city, does the city require a new business license?
It would be a change of location, so for that, it would go through the full development permit process, so it would be like starting over.
Okay. And that we can argue that down the road sometime, maybe. I know that businesses say it's the same business, I just moved places, but that answers the question, and I do understand why that, to support that. So, do you want to add to that, Executive Manager?
Yeah, I was going to say it's really dependent on the use of the building that they're moving into, which would trigger the development permit.
Okay.
So if there was a restaurant, for example, moving from Alberta to Saskatchewan or Saskatchewan to Alberta and going into an existing restaurant, then therefore your business license may not require development approval. So it all depends on the use
of the actual, and whether if, as an example, I moved from an office in Alberta, Saskatchewan, to a new location in Alberta, but there was no office that I was moving to, and the developer had to finish off the building, then that would likely trigger an example of one of it.
Yeah, the way I understand it, office to office potentially would need a business license, but if it was something prior to an office got redeveloped, then that would be taken into consideration.
Fair enough. The second one you did answer, Dan, and I just want to highlight it because I think that's very important. What defines a regional versus non-regional? I think it's been defined now as the OCP area or the intermunicipal district area. So I think that there is a map that we'll likely need again once communication, and if this makes it to the point of third and final reading, it will need to have that communication outlined to that piece just to ensure that somebody's going to be on the other side of the line, and we always know this happens. It's way, but lines are drawn, and that's the way it works. So I think that was the last question I had.
If I can, then, Your Worship, I'll ask Brian to come back up and he can touch on Schedule C, which is the proposed fee structure, and maybe some of the plans and what the group's looking at for the business license process.
Certainly.
Can I just, before we...
Councilor Buckingham?
I would entertain the idea that we blow 8.7 right out of this thing, coming back. Just as a suggestion, it's, to me, we're talking about red tape reduction. This to me looks like we're adding a whole level of something that isn't necessary. I don't know. It's just a thought. Something about it I haven't got my head around yet.
We'll leave it with administration, and they'll do some review on that. Brian, please carry on.
Thank you.
So if we move on to Schedule C in the bylaw, this is our proposed new license fees. When compared to our old license fee, it's greatly simplified. You basically have a general license depending on the size of your business, small, medium, or large. Small is under 500 square feet. The medium is 500 to 24.99, and large is over 5,000 square feet. So that's just your Walmarts are paying a little bit more than your mom and pop shops. And then we have non-resident licenses, regional and non-regional, which we've already talked about the difference between those. And those are substantially higher than our general licenses. And then we have our special licenses, which is our child care facility, our youth, our not-for-profit, and our public markets. And then we have exempt licenses, which would be all your professional services. And then on top of the general licenses, you may have a surcharge of tobacco flavored or vapor products or cannabis, depending if you sell those. And so that is our proposed fee structure. If we go back to the IR, we can kind of see how they line up with our current fees. And so I'll just speak to that while we're getting to that. The way we redid these fees is no one will be paying more than they currently have now, except for our out-of-town businesses. They'll be paying more. And then the goal was also to hold our revenues relatively the same between what we budgeted and what these proposed fees would provide the city. So you can see currently we have under 500 square feet, we have home-based businesses, home contractors. They most likely would all be under General A. And then we have two more subcategories currently, 500 to 24.99 and 2,500 to 4.99 square feet. They would be General Bs, over 5,000 square feet is General Cs. And then our out-of-town, we have out-of-town businesses and out-of-town contractors currently. That changes to just where you're located. It doesn't matter what you do. And then you can see their fees go up quite a bit. And then nonprofits stay the same. If you have a show, a farmer's market, or a mobile, you're now a special public market. Child care stays as a special child care with no change in fees. And then regular tobacco surcharge stays the same. And if you were selling flavored tobacco on top of regular tobacco, you wouldn't need two. You would only ever get one tobacco surcharge. So you would actually save money if you had previously had to stack those surcharges. And then cannabis stays the same as well. And then we also got rid of an admin fee because we just thought it's simpler to put them all in one fee. So there's a nice comparison of the old versus the new.
Sorry, can you just repeat that, flavored tobacco and regular tobacco? So if you get the flavored tobacco, you don't need dual.
Correct. So currently what you would need is, if today you need a normal business license, say you're 500 square feet,
right,
and you sell regular tobacco and you sell flavored tobacco, you need a regular tobacco surcharge and a flavored tobacco surcharge. We're just putting them all to one.
Okay.
Just keep one.
Perfect.
Councilor Thorson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Although I think the debate portion of that belongs better in a regular council meeting, but just generally speaking, would it be any use of just having tobacco as a single line if the fee is the same?
And not stacking it, you mean?
Because are you stacking 775 and 775?
No.
They're all 775.
You
So why
only
would it
get
not
one.
just be tobacco and just get rid of the flavored category?
So I think that's, I hear what you're saying, Councilor. I think if you go to the bylaw to
That is
C.
what we're doing, it's just still identified twice, I guess.
Because this is showing the comparison,
Ah,
so you
okay.
can see what last
So when
year's
he
was.
goes to that other schedule, it only shows it as one line, not two lines.
Yeah.
Same page. We're good.
Good.
Thanks. You did great there.
Councilor Dietz.
Yeah, so just a quick question. What are we generating revenues from business licenses? I think we saw that in our budget.
It's just over $500,000.
Thank you.
I guess the only question, and that's back to the discussion we had earlier on Schedule C, that around that youth $20,000, so subject to what comes back in the rewrite that's, would be a discussion. Councilor Torson?
And thank you, Your Worship, but this doesn't represent any significant movement in terms of the total amount. It's staying relatively flat, just moving around a little bit in terms of where the proportions are.
The fee structure is set to be very similar from last year to next year, or this year to next year. We may end up with more money if more regional, there seems to be a, if there's an interest in what we can provide in economic development services to provide more customer support to those regional businesses, we may end up with more money. So that's not taken into account.
Well, thank you. No, that's a great answer. That's something that I didn't really think about before, even as I was talking about not-for-profits that are exempt that could have access to some of the same information as even for the regional ones that are operating from out of town, the $500 you're paying for that, where you maybe you don't necessarily need it all the time, but getting access to that information on an annual basis, on a regular basis, and access to the surveys and the different reports that come with the City of Lloydminster, it would be good value potentially for those companies to just get in on the information with that subscription. Thank you.
Any other questions around the table? Going to go to you, Councilor Baker. Do you have any questions?
I've heard it all, Your Worship.
Good, I'm glad. That's technology is a wonderful thing when it works. Did you have anything else you would like to add, Councilor Baker?
Technology is a wonderful thing when it works.
Councilor Baker, did you have any other comments?
Councilor Baker, do you have any other comments?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Thank you, Doug. I can hear you clearly.
Okay, thank you, Councilor.
I can hear you.
With that, thank you very much, Ryan and Dan. We'll look forward to seeing it come forward with the workover. Thank you. Moving on to 6.3, City Manager.
Thank you, Your Worship. For 6.3, draft finance charge policy, I'll ask the Chief Financial Officer, Denise McDonald, to present.
So this is just a bookkeeping exercise that Dan and Ryan alluded to it in the bylaw, that we want to put forward a standard finance charge in order to have a consistent policy citywide. Of course, it's already built into a number of our city policies, bylaws, leases, and agreements. So as those ones mature, they'll fall into this standard category. And so if we go to the actual policy, that accounts receivable shall be considered due and payable upon mailing or sending electronically, unless otherwise determined by city policies, bylaws, leases, agreements, contracts, or resolutions of council. Finance charges will apply to an invoice in excess of 30 days with the invoice date and every month thereafter until the invoice is paid. All outstanding accounts receivable where finance charges are applicable shall receive a finance charge of 1.5%.
Councilor Tatchell.
So the only bone I have to pick, and it's not with this policy, is that I'm not sure about everybody else, but from time to time I get other people's mail and not my own. And I don't get stuff delivered. In fact, at one point in time, I was warned that my water would be disconnected because I hadn't paid my water bill. I said, I'd be glad to pay my water bill if I got the damn bill in the mail. So I just, again, sort of there are circumstances I think that are beyond the customer's control at times as well. And I've gone to the post office, I even put big numbers in the letters so the mail carrier can see it. That has absolutely no change whatever. And so some of those errors I think are simple because it's, the numbers and the streets and avenues get mixed up a little bit, whatever. But other times stuff just gets lost. And so I guess I would, just ask, the city be aware of that. And there are circumstances where stuff just doesn't make it. And even it's a short distance from, this building to or wherever the bill is generated to my house. And I know that we've had multiple instances where it hasn't been delivered. So I don't know. I guess just there's some leniency at some point around that. took into consideration beyond. But, I mean, you don't build a policy around someone else's incompetency, you build it around expectations that you have around businesses too. So I'm just saying that I know what's happened to me, and I'd be surprised if it hasn't happened to others.
Councillor Torres.
Thank you, Worship. Off the top of anyone's head, what's the cost of standard postage within a city? Does anyone know? 78 cents?
It's over,
Oh, it's over.
Is it? I can't remember.
I want to say 98 cents.
Yeah, it's,
Okay. I'm just wondering, when we apply these things across the board, there's always things to be cognizant of when you're applying flat percentages and rules like that, is that the last thing we want to do is be sending out a 1.5% charge on something, and it's actually costing us more in postage than it is in terms of fees that you were recovering.
Absolutely, and this is just to set up the 1.5%. So we will be working on a write-off policy that will identify, if a statement is just finance charges, we're not going to mill it out if it's under a certain dollar amount, and that if someone pays off their utilities or something and there's a small amount outstanding, then we will handle it internally and we won't take it to council. Those kinds of things will be coming, but this is just to establish that 1.5% on over 30 days.
so CFO on property taxes, because it's not a moving target, but we have seen over the 4 years of this council, dates, and I believe we brought finance charges. Would this oversee that, or would that be a separate policy?
That's taxation is a different penalty bylaw.
Okay.
So it wouldn't cover that.
So it would not apply to property taxes, but it apply to utility bills, and the list starts to go on.
Yes.
Rental fees and all sorts of any other fee outside of basically taxation from the city.
And certainly we can put in here, if it makes it clearer to identify that this does not apply to taxation, we can indicate that specifically, but it's meant under the section that it says city determined by city policies, bylaws, leases, agreements. We can't override those things if they're already established. So there's some agreements that are at 60 days with a different percentage. And over the long term, as those agreements come due and be reviewed for council consideration, we hope that they could just reference the finance charges policy, and then if we ever need to change it from 1.5 to 2 or to 1%, then we can easily do that by this policy and not have to go into each of the bylaws or agreements. They can just identify the policy.
Councilor Torres.
Thank you, Worship. So to be clear, this is 1.5% per month, which would be effectively 18% interest annually. Correct? And then how does that compare, I guess, to even what we do as far as tax side of things? Like, I understand the purpose of it, and it is to promote and make sure people are doing the right thing and paying their bills and not being delinquent on accounts and things like that, to recover some of our costs from write-offs from the ones that we don't end up getting with having to chase all of them. But as far as taxes, I know we've had to change that one quite a bit just because of the moving dates and things. But our tax arrears penalties, do they add up to 18% in a single year? Do they add up? I can't recall.
I know it's right up there.
It's close, because I think it's 3 5s or
16%.
Yeah, I just thought 18 sounded high, but something worth thinking about is that in the world that we're in right at this moment, 18% feels high.
I hear you. I'm doing some math myself. Any other questions around the table? Councillor Baker, do you have any questions or comments on 6.3, the draft finance change policy?
Help me out, Your Worship. It's the late payment charges. I missed that somewhere.
It was the very last item on the package. So trying to bring in a consistent policy applying to all city outstanding bills other than property taxes and anything that's
1.5%?
1.5% per month is what's being proposed.
Okay, that's it for, okay. I got it now. My mistake. Thank you.
No problem.
I'm good with it.
You're good with it? All right. Final call for any questions around the table. Thank you, CFO. With that, I will look to item number 7, inquiries from the media.
Thank you, Your Worship. Today we have interview requests for Councillor Buckingham, Councillor Monroe, and yourself, Mayor Roberts.
Thank you very much. I will look for a motion to go into for recess.
Motion recess?
Motion recess, seconded by